Welcome, everybody, to the Power of Connection broadcast. My name is Bobby Umer. I'm here with Cameron Herold, the founder of the COO Alliance. Welcome, Cameron.
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you, given the crazy circumstances we're all in and doing the best we can. How are things over there in Vancouver?
It's good, man. It's nice to see you wearing the Canada shirt. I threw on my red and white for you as well today. So.
I appreciate that, sure. For those of us joining us, Cameron Herold, we're going to talk about building from scratch, be your own COO during COVID-19. And, Cameron's got a fantastic profile in terms of all the work he's done with becoming one of the best COOs out there. He's done work with 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and he'll tell more about his kind of personal story. But if you're just joining us, we want to engage you guys. So please be sure to connect and comment below where you're from, Africa, Asia, North America, Australia, South America. Let us know. And you can also ask questions about, if you have a business or you have a career, you're trying to ramp up, you're trying to rebuild. His expertise in being a fantastic CEO is going to help a lot of people tremendously. So we want to make sure that people can ask questions. And again, if you're liking what you're seeing, you can kind of like, comment, heart, light bulb, all those different things. You can tag people, join the conversation. You can share us on your own pages. But ultimately, we want to engage as many of you as we can. And I broadcast normally on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today's a special exception because Cameron's on the West Coast, and so we want to make sure that we adhere to his fantastic. He can't come at 5:30 in the morning. That's crazy. So we don't want to do that. So I want to thank you, Cameron, for making the time for us, and appreciate you joining us.
Hey, Bobby, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
Yeah, delighted. So let's start off actually a little bit about your story. So I always like to ask my guests to tell a bit about the story of who you are and how you came to be where you are, and then once you do that, then we're going to get into the topic. But share with the world kind of your story.
Sure. I was groomed to be an entrepreneur. My father is an entrepreneur. Both my grandfathers were entrepreneurs. And today, both my brother, my sister, and myself, we each run our own companies and have for about 15 years. So all we've really ever known is the entrepreneurial journey. We were always told that having a job was a bad idea or a bad deal. You're trading time for money. You don't have control of your own destiny, control of your own time, and you don't have any real upside. So we were groomed to be entrepreneurial. I ran my first real company when I was 20 years old. I had 12 full-time employees when I was 20 years old, and I was running my own business while I was in university for 3 years. Graduated from university, and I got involved with the head office of a company called College Pro Painters. And that's really where I cut my teeth and learned how to grow businesses. I was responsible for recruiting and training and coaching entrepreneurs and franchisees. So by the time I was 26 or 27 years old, I'd coached 120 entrepreneurs. One of them ended up being Kimball Musk, who was Elon Musk's brother. I hired him, trained him, and coached him back in 1993. And then his cousin, Peter Reeve, who built Solar City, was also an employee of mine back in 1993. I ended up being a reference for Elon Musk in January of 95 for their first company, Zip2. So I've been around the entrepreneurial journey for a long, long time. Left College Pro Painters and got involved in an auto body chain. Helped build out an auto body group in Canada. It was called Boyd Auto Body. In the US, it became Gerber Auto Collision. The company went public in 1998. I exited the company then. It's now the largest collision repair chain in the world. College Pro was the largest house painting company in the world. I was then hired as the president of a private currency company. Similar to what Bitcoin is doing today, we created a digital currency 22 years ago. We had 30,000 businesses using our currency instead of the US dollars. We had Starwood Hotels, Avis Rent-A-Car, Budget, etc. using our currency. We sold that company in January of 2000. And I left and became the chief operating officer for a small company that ended up becoming 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And I joined the company. I was the 14th employee. There were 13 employees at the head office when I joined. And when I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide.
Wow.
We're operating in 330 cities, 4 countries, and I'd executed that growth as the second in command. I left there just over 13 years ago now and started coaching real companies. as I've said, the world's kind of littered with coaches, but I coach real businesses, typically between 50 and 500 employees, who are really looking to turn their companies into magnets for great talent. So I've coached entrepreneurs now all over the world. I've done paid speaking events in 26 countries on 6 continents. I've written 5 books that are all on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. And 4 years ago, I started an organization for the second in command called the COO Alliance, which is the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command. And then I started a podcast called the Second in Command Podcast, where we only interview the COO to get the rest of the story. So that's kind of my journey.
And a very powerful story, which begs the question, what do you still wish for or dream about?
Free time.
Free time. Do you have free time, or where are you at now?
I do have a lot of free time. Yeah, I take every Friday off. I take about 10 weeks vacation off every year. I finish my day at 5 o'clock. I never work nights. I don't work weekends. So I'm pretty good on that whole side of things for sure. Where I am right now with everything is I'm kind of wishing for more ability to travel. My girlfriend and I hit 14 countries in 2019, and right now we're at 0 in 2020. So we're kind of itching to get the travel thing going again.
Yeah. So that being said, how are things going for you? Like when COVID hit, how did you kind of respond, and how are things going now?
Well, my business now, if you think about my funnel, I do paid speaking events is really the top of my funnel. It's where I got a lot of my coaching clients from, my COO Alliance clients from, and people find out about my book. So speaking has dried up, but I've been doing Zoom webinars, paid webinars, which have been good. But yeah, I was supposed to speak at Traffic and Conversion, speaking at War Room. I go to the main TED conference every year, 5 days there. Everything kind of completely dried up. So that's was weird. So I switched to focus on PR and doing paid Zoom webinars. My coaching, 4 of my 18 coaching clients went on standby, 1 restarted right away, and then I picked up 4 others. So I'm pretty flat in terms of doing well on the coaching side. COO Alliance, we just had to pivot and take it online instead of being a pure play offline. We took our events online. So we ran April and June online. Our September events will be online. Book sales slowed down because Amazon stopped shipping books. So it became, you'd go to Amazon, it was like 28 days to get a book. So the audio versions of my books have been selling like crazy. But the hard copies of all my 5 books slowed down just because Amazon wasn't shipping. So just figure it out. You kind of take the problem, you sit down and figure it out.
Do you think being a lifelong entrepreneur helps you to navigate this current situation?
Yeah, I've also run companies now through 3 recessions. I was running a company during the 1987-88 crash. I ran a company during the 2001 stock market meltdown when the Nasdaq crashed by 78%.
Yeah,
crashed 78%, man. That was a big fucking holy shit awakening. And then through the global financial crisis of 2008, 2009. So I've actually made a lot of money during all those crashes as well. I know how to navigate those big downturns. I think I'm in pretty good shape. And then I've also been I've always been a very positive, gratitude kind of mindset. So I don't sit and worry about stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people out there are kind of struggling in many different ways. And one of the big things that I'm noticing when I talk to people is they're either pivoting or they're rebuilding the business from scratch. Now, when COVID hit and you're coaching these companies, and some of them may have to rebuild. Can you maybe share some insights in terms of how do you coach them through that process, and what can they do to start rebuilding from where either pivoting or rebuilding?
At the end of the day, we have three inputs that we put into our company, and then from those 3 inputs, we need to get outputs, right? So the outputs that we want to get are free time and money and a flywheel effect, and we want to build a brand. So the 3 things that we put in are our people, our time, and our money. So the pivot needs to be, what are people buying, right? Where are people spending their time and their money? And if you go out and you talk to your customers, or you talk to the groups that you want to be able to sell to and find out what they're looking for, you can sell them that. So I sat and listened to my customers, and they wanted help on navigating the crisis. So I have switched some of my coaching towards that. I'm doing Zoom webinars on how to grow when it's low. But if you look at, Double Double, my first book that came out, chapter 11 of Double Double was how to grow when it's slow. I had that content 10 years ago because I wrote it right after the global financial crisis. So a lot of my work and focus is what my customers need, right?
Right. Okay.
Instead of trying to create some great product and then market it and sell it to people that don't even know it exists, go talk to people and find out what they're looking for.
That's great. I appreciate that. And we're talking to Cameron Herold, the founder of the COO Alliance, and sharing some great insights into how to build from scratch, be your own CEO during COVID-19. I think that a lot of people struggle to navigate this uncertainty. They're also struggling to trying to find ways to scale their business. You're coaching people along that process. What are some ideas or insights you have around scaling the business? Because I think and I know you focus only on 50 to 50 plus employees, 50 to 500 employees, but there's some that are probably below 50 that I think are, especially during COVID. I think they're where they're going to pack it in, and so I'd love to kind of get some insights from you in terms of regrouping and how to really, I guess, save the business. I mean, you mentioned talking to your customers, which is great, but what about scaling it up too?
Yeah, well, there's a few things, right? Again, if you think about those three inputs, so with our people, which people do we need? Which people can we cut? Which people should we cut? Right? Who are the high performers, the A performers, and who are the C's? Your A players are the racehorses, B players are the workhorses, C players should go to the glue factory. We've seen a lot of times in good times where people just get fat and lazy, and their company kind of gets fat and has too many people. You need to cut that. So that's one thing, is cutting your overhead, renegotiating on your expenses, really kind of getting ruthless and on stuff that maybe you got lazy at before. So that's how you control your overhead and your cost of goods sold. And then when you take a look at marketing right now, marketing's never been cheaper, right? If you're building a brand for the long term where you've got a direct-to-consumer play or even a B2B play, almost every marketing outlet that exists is cheaper than it was 6 months ago. A lot of the places are giving you way more impressions or way more views for way less dollars than they were 3 to 6 months ago. So there's an opportunity to grow there. Again, where your focus goes, energy flows, right? So as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneurial company, it's about sitting down, setting goals, creating a plan, and putting all of your energy behind that plan versus sitting down and spending all day long reading about how bad the economy is and how bad the world is and how bad COVID is. None of that is growing your damn business, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck in the busy work and they get stuck in the worry instead of actually going out and growing the business. So it's focusing on revenue, focusing on sales, and focusing on getting the highest ROI from those three inputs.
Have you ever been in a situation where you were feeling uncertain or feeling stuck, and and maybe were uncertain about those inputs you talked about, and
all the time.
Okay, so when that happens, what's how do you coach your own self and work on your own mind?
Yes, the three things that the entrepreneur has to focus on is their focus, the faith in themselves, the economy of their team, and the effort they're putting in. So one of the core roles of the entrepreneur is to take care of themselves and their own mindset. So it's hanging out with positive people. It's being around and being in masterminds with positive, good energy people. It's not sitting and listening to the people like the energy vampires that suck up your time and your energy with all of their worry. So when you're sitting around people that are positive and focused and driving, you'll realize that begins to become your energy. So you need to protect your confidence with coaching, with mentoring, with hanging out with other groups of positive entrepreneurs, online masterminds, etc. I invest a lot of money in myself. I'm a member of 4 different mastermind groups that I go to the events and I pay to be a part of these events, which ends up driving my business in much bigger ways.
I mean, and I can share kind of my own personal story, which is having been a professional speaker for the last 15 years. That's my main thing I did. I only started doing some online programs and coaching in the last 3-4 years. And so, speaking gone. And I don't even know what it's going to be like when it returns. I mean, virtual for sure. Some live. It's going to be mostly virtual, as I or my speaker agencies are anticipating. So I've had to pivot to doing coaching and helping people transition and things like that. So I've had to kind of reinvent myself, which I think is a really big challenge. Since you are a speaker and have done stuff, how do you anticipate the speaker world going to evolve in the next year or so?
Well, I think the speaker world's already evolved. That first off, all speakers die broke, right? There's not a speaker who is just a speaker that will ever do well, because at some point they become irrelevant. So you need to have a back end that your speaking feeds, right? So my speaking isn't why I exist. It fills my funnel. It drives book sales, which drive my coaching and COO Alliance. it drives product sales, it drives referral income. So my speaking is simply a way for me to get the message out, and instead of me paying to do advertising, I'm being paid to do it. So I think speakers need to look at speaking as part of what they do, not what they do. That's first. Secondly, I think there's always going to be a huge opportunity to do webinars. I've been doing them for probably 6 years now, but I've been doing paid online webinars with people, with companies. So now it's just an extension of what I was doing before. Now I'm actually pushing for it more. I just booked one in Karachi, Pakistan. I booked one in Chennai in India. I booked one in Melbourne, Australia. I did one in Houston. So I'm doing webinars all over the world for groups that they couldn't afford to fly me. Like Karachi's not going to pay my $40,000 international fee and business class flight and 3 nights in hotel. That's a $60,000 investment. Now they can book me for $5,000. So for them, it's an opportunity, and for me, I don't need to go and spend a day and a half traveling and a day and a half back and 2 days sitting waiting for there's opportunities to think about your time. Again, if you have those 3 inputs of people, time, and money, what's the highest output? Zoom webinars and Zoom speaking events can be really powerful, and groups are getting accustomed to that. And then I think we need to figure out our content. Like my content is timeless. None of my content is tied to a trend. I'm not speaking about how to build a Pinterest community. I'm speaking about how to turn your company into a magnet for great employees. Right. That's always important. I'm talking about how to manage the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurship. That's always important. So the content that I work on is pretty timeless. And I think, anyone who's speaking about something that's trendy will realize that that trend is going to evaporate on you quickly.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that there's certain topics that I talk about that are also timeless in terms of relationship building and work on your brand. These are things that people are going to be using and talking about for a long time. So I think that's good. Although there probably are right now some very trendy topics that would actually be quite powerful for speakers to actually do. Like one of course is how to use Zoom and how to actually engage people. I think that when it comes to,
but you got to be careful with making your entire identity about that. You don't want to be the Zoom guy.
Yeah,
like imagine if you were the typewriter guy.
Yeah, I know a Zoom guy, but yeah,
I'm the fax machine marketing guy.
The icebox guy.
Right?
Yes. No, I totally get that. But given that we've trended now over a long time, I like your whole idea, the money, time, and people aspect. Not everybody has. I mean, everyone has a certain limited amount of time, and everyone has their own person, and not everybody has money. So, if there's the first place to invest energy into, where would you say that is?
Listening to customers and figuring out what people want to spend money on, and then sell them that. Okay.
So more people.
Because at the end of the day, the answer is yes. What are you buying?
Right.
You need marketing services to help fill your restaurant. I'll figure that out. You need accounting services to help lean out your team. Maybe that's a good fit for me. So I'll listen to people, and I'll listen to the market. I'll listen to the economy, and then I'll look to my people to find out what are they good at and what are they energized about, and can we do it, and how much time is it going to take, and what can we charge, and then what's my cash conversion cycle? I'm paying to find a new client and generating the revenue and getting paid.
Do you think
there's also a lot of entrepreneurs that should never be entrepreneurs, and I think that's something that we need to really kind of call out the pink elephant in the room. That over the last 10 years, entrepreneurship has become very cool, very hip, and very trendy, and there was a lot of money being thrown at people. But I think a lot of people aren't entrepreneurs; they're entrepreneurial, which is very great, and I love it. But they don't necessarily have to turn a freelancing kind of world for themselves into a business where they have lots of employees working for them. So I think we have to distinguish what an entrepreneurial person is and what an entrepreneur is. And I think quitting your job where you go and do copywriting for one company and starting a copywriting company that you do copywriting for 20 companies, but you don't have employees, you're being entrepreneurial. But you don't necessarily have to turn that into a company with an assistant and a finance group and a marketing group. Yeah. Because people don't necessarily have those skills. To be an entrepreneur where you're not doing the work and you have teams of people deploying it for you, You need to understand finance and marketing and leadership and operations and execution and culture and meeting rhythms. Like, there's a lot more there. And I think there's a lot of entrepreneurial people who are very good at their thing. They should just keep doing their thing. And I'll give you the big tip for them. They should charge 3 times more than they're charging. The reason for that is, in a freelancing world, you only get paid 30% of the time. 30% of the time you're out there trying to find work and no one's paying you to do sales and marketing. And 40% of the time you're doing all the busy work, the operations work, the overhead work that no one's paying you for. So if you want to make $100,000 a year as a freelancer, that's $50 an hour. But if you're only being paid for a third of your hours, you need to charge $150 an hour, not 50. So most freelancers are charging 50, hoping to make 100 grand a year, and they only end up making 33,000 and they can't figure out why. So you need to charge more than your normal hourly rate might have been, because you don't get to bill out at 40 or 50 hours a week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's something I think a lot of freelancers kind of struggle with for sure. And we're talking to Cameron Herold, the founder of the COO Alliance. If you have questions around how to build your business, how to scale it, how to actually be an effective CEO for your business, please ask questions below. Let us know what you're thinking. Share comments on what you're thinking of all the insights that Cameron is sharing today. You mentioned obviously the difference between entrepreneur and entrepreneurial. I'd love to actually kind of understand more about CEO. So, is it COO? If you want to be an effective COO, then you're looking for people have to be more entrepreneurs. And if so, what are some aspects of being a really good COO?
So a COO is really the second in command at the highest level. So a COO, really, if you're thinking about a second in command, it could be a general manager, it could be a director of operations, it could be a VP of operations, or it could be a COO. So the C-level title used to be at a bigger company. Unfortunately, titles have crept down now, where you end up giving titles that are too big to people, which cost you more money. Like the head of finance could be a controller or a director of finance or a VP of finance or a CFO. So I think people have to be careful with thinking they're a COO of a 7-person company. You're not a COO of a 7-person company. You're really more of an operations manager or a director or a manager, right? If you're going to move into a real COO role where you're the yin and yang to the CEO, you have to be really, really good at all the stuff the CEO hates. You have to be really, really good at all the stuff the CEO sucks at. And you have to develop a real strong trust and culture fit with the CEO, that you become that pure fit, like a jigsaw puzzle with them. And then the CEO has to do their stuff and you have to make them look good. And behind the scenes, the CEO has to make sure that you look good. That's really what the COO CEO relationship is all about. So go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
In some cases, the COO oversees engineering, and some they don't. In some cases, they oversee finance, and some they don't. In some cases, they see marketing. It really depends on what's the CEO want to focus on, and then everything else is what the COO will focus on.
And when you decide to become a COO for a large organization, and you're talking to CEOs, I mean, what are some of the factors that help you say, well, like, how do you know, okay, this is one that I really want to maybe get involved in, and this one I need to stay away?
It's really looking at what is the job scorecard look like, and what are the roles and responsibilities of the CEO, and what are the roles and responsibilities of the COO. So you have very, very clear role delineation, so you really know the sandbox that you're each going to play in. And then it's the level of autonomy and the level of oversight that you're being given. So you really understand, is that the fit? And then you really have to understand the character, the behavioral traits of the CEO that you're going to be working with. Like, is this a person that you want to hang out with? Is this a person you want to spend time with? Because you're really going to be, business married to that person.
Yeah, it resonates with me because, I mean, I have a startup called DYPB, Discovery Crystal Brand. One of the things that I'm doing is I work with a general manager or an operations manager. And so she and I are working together to really drive the organization forward. But I love working with her, and I think she compliments me in areas that I don't, either things I hate doing or things that I need someone to give me. Like, one of the things that she does for me really well is she's really focused on, here are the 3 things you need to work on. I'm like, okay, great, because I'm very scattered sometimes, I get distracted. So that relationship to me has been very, very good. People are adding comments, which is great. Matthew says, value-added services always sell. Focus on your strengths, you can charge more. Yeah, I agree. And then also, he asked a question. He asked, please address how small startup companies can gain understanding of what COO does. I'm a one-man show with contract employees.
Yeah, if you're a one-man company, you don't want to hire a COO. You want to hire an executive assistant before you hire anything else.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And why is that? Maybe explain to him why that's.
Well, if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one.
Right.
So you've got to get all the administrivia off your plate. And when you can start getting all the administrative stuff off your plate, all the little details of things off your plate, then you can start spending time on your unique ability. And the more time as the entrepreneur that you spend in your unique ability, the stuff you're great at, the stuff that gives you energy, the more your business will start to scale. And then you'll have the revenues and the gross margin to be able to pay for the next level of team to start doing stuff for you. But a COO is way more expensive than an executive assistant, right? So I would recommend that people start getting the busy work off their plate, the $10, $15, $20 an hour tasks off their plate. You don't want to be paying, COOs, like a real true COO is a $300,000 plus person. Maybe a director of operations is going to be 120. So you don't want to be paying $60 to $200 an hour for somebody to do work that's $15 an hour work.
No, I appreciate that. That's good insight.
And then leveraging freelancers, right? Looking to leverage that freelance in the gig economy to get stuff off your plate so you can become the project manager of stuff.
Now, I want to transition to looking at industries because, are there situations where industries, or do you think there can be some industries that are maybe people should exit? They're not gonna flourish in a couple of years. So it's not worth it. The first one that comes to my mind, for example, is like, and even if you ask the audience or ask your target, your followers, what they love, like one that always gets to me is like, is theater. Like theater is totally devastated by COVID, and so I think a lot of players are going to just exit. Are there industries like that need to maybe take a second look and maybe exit?
Yeah, I mean, retail. We've been saying for years is dead, right? That everything's moving online. So you look at the amount of chains that are starting to declare bankruptcy in retail; it's pretty obvious. That it's going to be really, really tough for retail businesses. Consumers aren't going to have the money; they're not going to be out spending. So retail is going to be under a downdraft. Commercial real estate is going to get decimated. You think of all these retail chains that aren't paying rent, all the restaurants that can't afford to pay rent, and then you've got all these businesses that had 100% of their employees going to an office that are now kind of getting used to the whole work from home, and they're going, maybe like Shopify, don't come to work until 2022. Twitter, don't come to work until 2020. Like they're saying for the next 18 months, you don't have to come into an office. Right. Well, I can tell you for sure, they're not going to be paying rent to these landlords. So I think the commercial real estate sector is going to be under a downdraft. The airline and hospitality sector are going to be in a downdraft. Hotel industry is going to be in a downdraft. So you don't want to be selling value-added services to industries that aren't going to have the cash. Right. You want to, not only do you not want to be in the hotel industry, but you probably don't want to be selling to the hotel industry.
Right. But when these industries are talking to their customers and stuff, I mean, it's going to be hard for them to come up with some really good ideas on how to actually pivot. Again, I think the pivot comes down with talking to your employees as well about what do they see, what do they like, what are they hearing, right? Again, if you have those three inputs of people, time, and money, it's getting together with your A team to find out what do they love, what are they seeing, what are they hearing, and what are the opportunities to be able to go and explore them. And then how do you get the ROI off those? It's a really interesting time right now. It's a really delicate time for a lot of businesses. Yeah, I mean, it's the water cooler moment of the century, and I mean, everyone's talking about it wherever I go. So I spoke to somebody this morning, and they said, what's a company like Tylenol that had that big problem 20 years ago, and how did they handle the messaging? I'm like, wait, you're not trying to do messaging around COVID to your customers because this isn't your issue. You didn't fuck anything up. There's nothing to own. The reality is it's time to say we're open, come back. We hear you, come in. Like, you can't just go out there and apologize for hurting them for the last 4 months. You didn't do anything wrong. Every industry has been fucked. Schools have closed down. Graduations were canceled. Universities had to go online. Weddings didn't happen. Cruises were booked.
I've got 4 different airline tickets where I wasn't given a refund. I was given a credit for the next 12 months.
Right.
You know, I'm at the highest level on 2 different airlines, Platinum, and they both said, we're going to guarantee you for another 16 months at that highest level. Everybody's been hurt, so don't even bother apologizing to your customers about having hurt them. You didn't hurt them. The whole world got their ass handed to them. Yeah. So I think we have to realize that it's just a different time, and it's the time for leaders to lead, right? It's the time for leaders to have a really strong new vision of where they're going and get people aligned with that. But I think we need to move past the whole, you know, people are going to get hurt. It's going to be a tough time.
Yeah. Is there anything that you've actually learned in the last, like this year, that maybe surprised you or you never realized it?
Yeah, one was around credits, where people were like, you know, well, we have to give everybody a credit. Well, nobody's actually giving credits. Like I have Rolling Stones tickets, but the concert was canceled. They're not giving me my credit. I had really expensive seats, and they're saying when they rebook, you'll be able to have tickets. And I got 4 airline tickets. I got they're not rebooking. You know, I'm a member of mastermind groups that I paid. Those events are online instead of in person. They're not refunding. Right. So I was surprised at the lack of credits. And then I also realized that if everybody had to credit, every business was going out of business.
Right. They're all just trying to save themselves. And
so basically we're all going to feel the pain.
Yeah.
I'm surprised at the level of government incentives. Like, we've printed close to $3 trillion. That's a lot of money in the U.S. to print. I think we're coming into either depression or stagflation. It's like hyperinflation plus strong recession.
Yeah, so we have to bear down on that. You know, as business owners are looking to the future, you know, any suggestions or thoughts on how to build a business that's COVID-proof? You know, what are some steps they can take?
Pure work virtual, so no office environment. You know, global versus local. Hyper kind of fluid, where you follow the money, you follow the buying. You know, my dad built a company years ago, and his mantra was, the answer is yes, what are you buying? Like, you know, do you sell cabinets? Absolutely, we sell cabinets. Let me get back to you with a quote in 48 hours. Like, I'm selling whatever you're buying. Right. Versus, and as long as I'm taking care of the customer and delivering what I promise, I think it's going to be a little bit of that, really listening to the customer, really following the customers that have money. Debt is good until it's bad. You know, it's not a time to go big on debt right now. Mm-hmm. You know, even though money is cheap, when interest rates go back up, or, you know, over time, you don't want to be saddled with a lot of debt. I think cash is king in a recessionary market.
Right. Yeah. No, these are all really good insights. You know, you mentioned before that everyone in your family is an entrepreneur and things like that, and your siblings and stuff are entrepreneurs. So, how competitive are you with each other?
Not really anymore. It's been long enough now that I don't think the competition is there. I think we've all been running our businesses for long enough that we know what we're good at. We know what we suck at. You know, my sister's business went from about $1 million a month to zero during COVID, and with no ability to really pivot. And she's coming out of it strong, but she runs co-ed intramural sports leagues for people in their 20s and 30s, and she's got 30,000 people playing co-ed intramural sports. She can't very well say, well, let's play beach volleyball from everybody's dining room this afternoon, and, you know, the basketball is going to be played from the kitchen. Like, she basically had to go to zero. So that was interesting watching her. I watched my brother go to zero 6 or 7 years ago, because he sells into the mines, the big mines in Northern Ontario and Canada, and the mines had a 6-month shutdown. And I watched how he pivoted and how he controlled overhead. So I don't think we're competitive. I think we really are very empathetic to each other in the entrepreneurial struggle and the entrepreneurial opportunities.
Right. And so you can probably offer each other support as you go along.
Yeah, in different ways, for sure.
Right. And so for you, so for you, you know, now that you've done a lot of the stuff you were doing, like, what are some of the things you're working on now, and what are some of the things you're looking to work on in your future?
I'm preparing in about 16 months to live globally, where I'll no longer be living in the US. So I'm Canadian, but I live in the US for tax purposes. So I'm a US resident. But once my youngest son moves to university, my goal is to start living globally. So right now I'm working on where I'll tax base out of. Because I'm not American, Canada doesn't follow you for worldwide income, and the US can't follow me for worldwide income. So I'll probably domicile out of Portugal, Estonia, looking for where I can be in a kind of an E-zone that I can travel freely within multiple countries without really leaving the country, and then also have a tax base that's in around 10% total tax. So that's one thing I'm working on, is how to get out of the 40% tax zones, and just for the next few years, just kind of build up cash quickly.
And part of it's like travel too. Like travel is something that's very important to you, right?
Yeah, and then I was about to say, and then the other one is just travel. It's just being able to live globally. So I've got a list of about 30 cities that I want to live 1 to 3 months per city in. Okay. And now that I can be anywhere in the world, I can come back and forth for my COO Alliance events. I can coach. And I was coaching somebody in Germany this morning on a call, and I've got another call with somebody this afternoon in Austin. That I can be coaching people all over the world remotely. My team's all remote. I've got a team member in Portugal. I've got one in Dallas. I've got one in Scottsdale. I've got one in Kingston, Ontario. So it doesn't even matter where I am to them. So, yeah, global.
And you mentioned those cities. What are some of the top three cities that you really want to go visit and live in?
Oh, I could read you the list, but off the top of my head, Amsterdam, Barcelona, Lisbon, Seville, Buenos Aires, Santiago.
Okay.
Yeah, I really want to get into Singapore, just really kind of hunker down. A lot of Europe, actually. A lot of Europe.
Yeah, Europe has a certain flavor of living, which I think is really kind of appealing.
And I've been to 54 countries already. I've done paid speaking events on 6 continents. So I've been around a lot to know where what I like, what I love. I've been to Australia 4 times. So, but I'd like to go live in Sydney for 2 months. Mm-hmm. I'd like to go live there. What I want to do is pick a city, rent an Airbnb for a month or 2, and just get to know that, like walking to the butcher and walking to the baker and get my little coffee shop and meet some friends, and maybe do a couple of little paid speaking events while I'm there with the EO and YPO chapters, and then jet off to the next city.
Nice. That sounds like that sounds like a good dream to go after, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
We're getting near the end of our chat, but if people want to reach out to you, or they want to ask you questions, or maybe they want to work with you, what's the best place for them to reach out to you?
Sure. So the two websites are the CameronHerold.com, and it's HEROLD.com, and then the COOalliance.com as well. All 5 of my books are available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes, so they can check out all my books. And then the Second in Command podcast would be a great one for them to subscribe to and start listening to as well, because we've interviewed the COO of Bumble, the COO of 15Five, of Shopify. So has some really, really good seconds in command on there as well.
That's amazing. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, Cameron. I really do appreciate it. For all those on the call, again, we're here on Mondays and Wednesdays, 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the most part. And if you have questions for Cameron, or you watch the replay, be sure to like, comment, but also to ask your questions and tag us, and maybe there'll be a chance to and go follow Cameron's post on LinkedIn. I was just looking at his post just before this call to see what is he talking about today, and it's good to see that you're engaged. You've built a large following for yourself, and I'm really grateful for your time. So thanks so much, Cameron. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. This is great.
And everybody else out there, if you have questions as you go through this challenging time of COVID, just remember that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to support you. People like Cameron who are out there inspiring with their content and helping companies really advance and take their businesses and their lives to that next level. So keep continuing to ask for help, and continue to join the broadcast, join his podcast, and I look forward to seeing you guys all next week on Monday. So thanks so much. Have a great week. Stay safe.
Bye, everybody.